Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we'll be talking about Riptide 2024, which was the biggest event of the weekend, coming in at a P tier with pretty much all of NA's top talent showing up, as well as a handful of Japanese invaders. For our top 16 finishers, you're going to have Miya, Luis, Lima, and Guyguy in 13th. Tweek, Asimo, Snow, and Light in 9th. In 7th, you're going to have Shadic and Zomba. 5th was Syrup and Beats on Paul. 4th was Riddles. 3rd was Sonix. 2nd was Shuton. And winning the entire thing was SPARGO. So first things first, let's talk about our top 8 seeds that did not get into the top 8. And the first one is going to be Hurt. He ends up getting 17th place, losing to Candle in the winner's side, which we knew would be a bit of a scary matchup if it did end up happening for him, just considering that Candle is really good at the snake matchup. But I also think Almar does pretty well into that matchup. And obviously in practice, it turns out that way. You are going to have Hurt picking up a nice win on Cola, but immediately after that, going into day 3, he does end up falling to Snow. And Hurt hasn't had an amazing start to the season, all things considered, and it hasn't been unbelievably terrible for him. He's still got a 5th place at Supernova. He's still got a 3rd place at Sumabato SP50, but underperforms at Kowloon X Kagadibi, now underperforms at this event. It's just two big P tier events where Hurt isn't doing well, which was just something that we did not see at all in the first half of the year. So it's going to be pretty difficult for him to maintain that top 4 spot, but to say it's impossible would this definitely not be true, because Hurt is still an incredible player, and I absolutely think that he could bounce back. You're also going to have Miya finishing in 13th place. And straight up, I do not think that Miya was playing well at this event. And I don't think many people would disagree with me on that one, considering that he goes to Game 5 in his pools phase versus an Ike player, which can be a little bit difficult for Game Watch for sure. But, you know, Miya definitely should be able to navigate that without it being that close. He also goes Game 5 versus Omega, though he does pick up the win, and ultimately falls to Syrup in the winner's side of the bracket in Steve Game & Watch, which is a matchup that you would consider Miya to be extremely dominant, considering the amount of experience he has, versus Akola also having the character as a secondary himself. That's not one where he should be losing. Does make it to day 3, though, where he beats Jazzo, but then runs into Light in the loser side of the bracket, and it's another situation where Miya probably should be winning that one. It's a very bad matchup for Fox, but Light is incredible at it, to his credit. So you do have Miya finishing 13th place here. And as I said, he was not playing super well at this event. You're usually seeing Miya hit people for like 80-90% off one advantage state, but it just simply wasn't happening this time around. I don't know if he just wasn't feeling it, maybe it was a bad day, or maybe just things just simply weren't going his way, but he wasn't able to get those crazy advantage states that you know him for. And he's had a couple rough spots this season. Doesn't do great at Supernova, obviously doesn't do great here. Now, he won Kagadibi X Kulon, so I'm not sure he's too worried about the season so far, but he's already in a spot where it's not looking like he's going to be in the running for best in the world. And for a player of Miya's caliber, it's really unfortunate to already have those results so early. And our final top 8 seeds that did not get into the top 8 are going to be Tweek and Asimo, both finishing in 9th, respectively. Asimo is going to pick up wins on Icon in the Ditto, which was a banger. Guyguy, and most importantly, Light. I do think that is a pretty good matchup for Ryu, but you still have to be able to execute it to beat someone of Light's caliber. Is obviously very impressive. In the winner's quarterfinals, he ends up running into SPARGO, which is definitely a bad draw for him, really anybody at this event. And in the loser side, he ends up falling to Riddles in another banger. Whenever FGC players are playing other FGC players, it is just like a guaranteed good set right there. And this isn't an amazing result for Asimo by any means, but it's not like a terrible result. I think Asimo's had a super strong start to the season where he could be considered a top 10 player in the world. Now, this result isn't going to exactly help him with that, but it's also not really going to hinder him with that. You know, he gets a really nice win on Light. He doesn't have any bad losses at this event. It's still a decent placement overall. It's just not what he was obviously hoping for. And for Tweek, he's honestly going to be in a similar situation. Now, he hasn't had the amazing start to the season that Asimo has had with that super solid run at Supernova, as well as a top 8 at Kagadibi, because he's only been to 2 majors this season, which are Supernova and Riptide, and he ends up getting 9th place at both of those events. And he picked up a really nice win on Snow at this event, but he loses to people that you're kind of expecting Tweek to lose to at this point in the winner's side of the bracket. He ends up running into Syrup, who he did beat in his last encounter, but Steve historically has not been a great matchup for him. It wasn't a great matchup for him this time. 3-0 in Syrup's favor, both the Diddy Kong and the Sephiroth losing out. And in the losers bracket, he ends up running into Zomba, who I would definitely say is Tweek's demon in the current state of the game. Maybe you would argue it's like Hurt or a Cola or Miya. I mean, he hasn't even played Hurt, but a Cola or Miya. But to be fair, those guys are like, top 2 in the world, less so of a demon situation. More so, they're probably just better. But Zomba, it seems like he's got Tweek's number right now. We even saw the Wario coming out from Tweek, and it does end up taking a game, and I really like that from Tweek. If you're a player of his caliber, and you've played so many different characters at the top level, it just doesn't make sense to not try your secondary. If this guy's been beating you over and over and over again, and you have a better matchup going in, just at least make an attempt. And the Wario was actually looking pretty good for Tweek, even though it doesn't end up taking the set this time around. I think the next time that him and Zomba plays, if he continues to invest in that, it absolutely could be a serious danger. So 9th place for both Tweek and Asimo. These are 2 players who I do think could be top 10 by the end of the season. And while this wasn't the result that they were looking for, it's not terrible. Now it's time to talk about the losers runs of the tournament, at least of the ones that didn't get into the top 8. And that's definitely going to go to either peabnut or Luis. Peabnut's going to end up losing in the pools phase to Rob, the snake player, where then he wins 6 sets in a row over Morley, Colorado, Chugs, Leviathan, Wilds, and Cosmos to get into that top 17, or that top 24 rather, and then he ultimately runs into Light, which is a pretty bad draw. I think Mega Man is a very bad character into Falk, and he does end up losing that one. So even though Peanut doesn't go on maybe the crazy run that I predicted him to go on, this is still a super good recovery from him, maintaining his solid season. 17th at Supernova, 17th at this event, just 2 really good ones back to back, and I really think it's only going to go up and from here. Speaking of going up from here, Luis is probably going to be our losers run of the tournament. After losing to Char, the Steve player, in the pools phase, he ends up winning 7 sets in a row over Memphis, Regalo, Spritzy, Lope, Wrath, and Atomic to get into that top 24. Once in the top 24, he also manages to take a set off of Mudace before falling to Snow in a reverse 3-0. And something that I was really impressed by with Luis at this tournament were his teleport cancels on the Palutena. Whenever he was in the disadvantage, or even sometimes just in the neutral, didn't like a situation, he would just immediately disengage away from it. He was getting so much value out of it. But in the reverse 3-0 versus Snow, he kind of just stopped doing it after Snow called him out a couple times for it. But I really like what he was doing with those teleport cancels. I think if he continues to do that, that it is going to be the meta of Palutena, just make you have such an unbelievably good advantage state. And you also got to give credit to Snow for actually just figuring out Luis in the neutral as well. He was just getting hit way less. It was really hard for Luis to get his openings there. But I was really happy with how Luis played at this tournament. It feels like when he went into loser's bracket, all of that pressure was just taken off him. It's like, do you know what? I already lost. I'm just going to see how far I can go. And the answer was extremely far. When Luis is playing good, he is a major threat, and I hope we get to see more of it. Now I've got 3 players that I don't have full segments for, but I wanted to highlight every single one of them. And the first one is going to be Candle. They end up getting 17th place, as I already mentioned, with that massive win over Hurt. And that is a matchup where I think Candle is just personally very good at it, and Olmar also does pretty well, but you are still beating a top 5 player in the world. Like, that is such a massive accomplishment, so just huge props to them for getting that really nice win. You're also going to have Pharoah finishing in 17th place, and he's able to get a huge win over Icy Mist. That matchup is so unbelievably bad for Yoshi. I have no idea how Pharoah managed to overcome it, so just big props to him for that, as well as a super solid placement. And then finally, you are going to have Atata. And Atata doesn't pick up a specific win that I thought was really impressive, but he just had 2 super solid results back-to-back. 17th at Supernova, 17th at Riptide. He's looking like one of the best NES players in the world, probably the 2nd best NES player in the world, just behind Gak. But it's been a very long time since it was even a conversation for who that 2nd best NES in the world could be. And if Atata keeps it up, it could be him. And then for Pluck, I have 2 more runs that I really quickly wanted to add to that little segment. The first one is going to be Jazzo, who also gets 17th place. He's going to pick up wins on Jeja, and Quid, most importantly. And this is kind of similar to Atata, where I just wanted to shout out Jazzo because he's been doing so well recently. I feel like I really haven't had a big opportunity to talk about him. So this is it. Jazzo, been very impressed by his play. I think he's definitely the best Ken player in the world right now. And maybe he could be the best FGC player in the world at some point. That's going to be a lot harder because obviously Riddles exist, Asimo exists. But with the rate of improvement that I've seen from this guy, I think saying it's impossible is just straight up not true. And you're also going to have Guyguy finishing in 13th place with Solo Luigi. He's going to pick up wins on Doorstop and Candle, most importantly, only losing to Asimo and Zombie. You really can't feel too bad about that. He also gets a nice win on Atata. I would definitely say that Guyguy is the best Luigi player in NA at this point. And maybe not NA because Waka is really good. America, I should say. But there's just so many good Luigis right now that are killing it. Most importantly, of course, is going to be Rare. I feel like he's the one that's kind of showing everyone, hey, this character is actually like incredibly broken because a single hit, you could just deal like 50 to 60 to literally killing them. And Guyguy was doing a whole bunch of killing you in one hit at this event. Really fun player to watch, and I hope we get to see more Luigi. And before we move on to that top 8, there's 3 players from that top 6 in the area that I haven't talked about, so I'm going to talk about them. The first one is Lima. He's going to pick up a win on Pharoah before falling to Sierra, beat Skeleton and Geist to make it to that top 24, where then he gets a win on Onin before falling to Riddles. So beats Onin at this event, but does end up losing to Syrup. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about Syrup, but solid run overall from Lima. Gets that really nice Onin win, like I mentioned, as well as good wins on players like Geist and Pharoah. I do think those are players that are only going to get better going into the season. I think Lima is a player that is going to improve off the first half of the year. And it's not like he had a bad first half of the year, but this is just another solid result under his belt. He's been very consistent overall, and honestly, I don't think that's going to stop. In 9th place, you're going to have Light. He's going to end up losing to Asimo in the winner side, but he's going to get 2 really crucial wins on Peabnut and Miya, as well as beating Raven King and Rocky in the winner side. But obviously, the Peabnut and specifically the Miya wins are going to be where he's getting a majority of that value, and then he ends up losing to Shadic to not get into that top 8. So has a tough matchup in the winner side versus Asimo, and a really good matchup in the loser side versus Shadic, but Shadic was just really, really good at that matchup. He feels like he's been grinding that one, and you could definitely tell by the results. And our final 9th place finisher is going to be Snow. He's going to pick up wins on Henry, Luma, and Aaron before falling to Tweek, though he does almost manage to reverse 3-0 that, if I do remember correctly. So very competitive set right there. He also 3-0s hurt to knock him out at 17th place, which is obviously a huge win. Pulls off that reverse 3-0 versus Luis and runs into Sonix in the loser side of the bracket. Now, he wasn't able to pull off that timeout shenanigans this time around, though I do believe the one game that he took was because he played the time extremely well. But Sonix, he is going to adapt to that. He gets really angry when you beat him in the winner side, and just in general in a tournament, but especially if you upset him, you know the next encounter he's going to put at least like 30 more hours into your character. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen the next time they play, because I'm sure Snow also wants to make those adaptations. But for now, 9th place is good enough. Now it's the moment that you all been waiting for, that juicy top 8. And if there's a player that I left out and you're curious about their run, just leave a comment down below. I'll be sure to tell you how they did and sub while you're down there. But our 7th place finishers are going to be Shadic and Zomba, starting off with Shadic, who's going to pick up wins on Death Spade, Char, and Onin to get to that top 24 through the winner's side, where he ends up falling to Beast Mode. Paul actually beats Light in the losers bracket to get into that top 8, and once in the top 8, he ends up running into Sonix. And Sonix is a really tricky opponent for Shadic because even though I do think that Corrin does pretty well into Sonic, if I had to pick one player in the entire world to be good against Corrin, it would probably be SPARGO, just considering how good he is at the character. But then I would obviously go with Sonix as my second best choice. He just knows the ins and outs of that matchup, because whenever Sonix sees a character that is potentially a threat to him, he just studies them for like 20-30 hours. He did it to Snow after Snow beat him with Mario. He's doing it as we speak right now to Olimar after Shuton beat it, and he has done that with Corrin multiple times. That's going to be a difficult one for Shadic to overcome, just because of how well Sonix knows the character, and also the guy is like unbelievably good. But that's kind of how Shadic made his career, was winning those impossible matchups, overcoming what he shouldn't be able to do. So like he did with Light at this event, even though it feels like a normal thing nowadays, Corrin beating Fox is something that really should never happen. That is an extremely difficult matchup, but Shadic just plays it so well, 3-0ing Light at this event. He's had a really strong start to this season. Definitely a player that I have poised to be, honestly, top 5 by the end of the year, and in contention for that title of best player in the world. Maybe not for this year of 2024, just because SPARGO started off so strong, but I think going into 2025, he would be one of those front candidates. Speaking of a front candidate for best in the world in 2025, Zomba is also going to finish in 7th place. Both those Stride boys sharing that placement. He's going to pick up wins on Toad, Leviathan, and Jazzo before falling to Shuton, where then he beats Atata, Guyguy, and Tweek to get into that top 8. Ends up falling to Riddles right there, and honestly a really good set. They haven't played since, I believe, like 2023 Gommel, but I wouldn't quote me on that one. And Zomba just has a couple people that it feels like he destroys, and Tweek is one of those people. As I talked about with Tweek, that's definitely going to be something that he has to overcome. But if you are a roadblock for Tweek, one of the best players that has ever touched Smash Ultimate, I mean, it's clearly a sign that you are doing something right. This is going to be Zomba's first top 8 of the season. And to be fair, the only other tournament that he went to was Supernova, where he got 13th place. But it's nice to get that one under your belt right away, and then we can see what he's going to continue doing. And to be honest, it's probably only going to be up from here. In 5th place, you're going to have Syrup and Beast Mode. Paul starting off with Syrup. He's going to pick up wins on Yoda Cage, Lima, and Miya to get into that top 24, where then he beats Tweek to get top 8 through the winner's side. And then he gets a little bit unlucky running into SPARGO and Sonix, which are like the 2 worst people in the entire world to play against if you're a Steve player. And both those characters also thrash Ness as well. But he does manage to take a game versus both of them, so shoutouts to him for that at the very least. Syrup was so amazing at this event. Every single time we see him, he's getting better and better and better, but it feels like he was just explosively better, and it's because he was going for that difficult Steve tech. He was actually going for the no impact land combos. He wasn't just taking his free 40-50% like it's nothing. He was trying to rob your stock. He's trying to kill you super early. And I just appreciate that someone is playing Steve the way that you're supposed to play the character. And you know what? He was messing up. He messed up a couple times. Sometimes he would just up B straight into the ground because he messed up his input. But I appreciate at least going for it. If you're going to be playing a character like Steve in this part of the game, you might as well be going for some of that crazy tech. And it was never really a question of if Syrup is going to reach the top level of Steve. It really was just when, and I think we are at the when as we speak right now. I think by the end of the year, Syrup will be the best Steve player in America. Now, I'm sure Onin has a lot to say about that, but Onin doesn't have the strongest start to the season. Not a weak start by any means, but not the strongest start to the season. Syrup has this amazing result under his belt. It's not impossible that we have a new best Steve in America. Onin's held that title for a very long time, but Syrup's looking to grab it from him this time around. You're also going to have Beast Mode Paul finishing in 5th. He's going to pick up wins on Pneumonia, Cola, and Candle to get to that top 24, but then he beats Shadic to get into the top 8, then running into Shuton and Riddles. Huge props to him for getting that win over Shadic. That's something that he's been struggling with for quite some time, and I do think that corner does pretty well into Hero, but he manages to overcome it, so obviously massive props for that one. I believe this is Beast Mode Paul's first ever top 8 at a major event. He's had a lot of really solid placements before, but most of them are going to be coming from regionals, but he finally gets it under his belt this time around. That's got to be feeling so good for him. That competition of the best year in the world between Beast Mode Paul and Akka has definitely gone towards Akka's favor in the first half of the year, but the second half of the year could absolutely go toward Paul's amazing start at Supernova, getting 25th here. Now he's got a top 8 at Riptide, and he's just been killing it. Editing Fruit Block, I just want to make the correction. I'm pretty sure the tag is Numa, not Pneumonia. It's definitely not Pneumonia, but I'm pretty sure it's Numa. In 4th place, you're going to have Riddles, 3rd place Sonix, and from now on, every single person was double eliminated by the person that placed right above them, which is kind of crazy. I've literally never seen that before in a bracket, but that's just the way it worked out this time around. For Riddles, he's going to pick up wins on PK, Chris, and Rob before falling to Sonix in a Game 5, where then he beats Pharaoh in a Game 5, as well as Lima and Asimo to get into that top 8. Also goes Game 5 with Asimo. Once in top 8, he beats both Zomba and Beast Mode Paul before running into Sonix once again. Only takes 1 game this time around, and it was pretty much solo Terry at this event from Riddles. The only time I saw him bring out the Kazuya was versus Beast Mode Paul, but maybe he used it in some of his earlier pool matches. But the point is, Terry was definitely the main catalyst for Riddles at this event, and to be honest, he was absolutely cooking on that Terry. Some of the calls that he was making with side B and his go inputs were just so fearless. That's kind of what you have to do with Terry. This is a very explosive character. You get jab, you get down till you're going for an absolute ride, especially in the hands of someone like Riddles. He was also doing some crazy nair swings. I remember one on Zomba specifically where it took him like halfway across the stage to 80%. The Terry was looking on point is the main thing that you need to take away from this event, and Riddles was in a little bit of a slump prior to this, and by that I mean he got 49th at Supernova and then didn't really go to anything prior to Supernova, so the Supernova performance just seemed really, really bad. He actually got 3rd place at Gommel prior to Supernova at event. So was he going through a slump? Not actually, but in terms of Smash Ultimate Brain, yeah, he was super, super washed, but this is an amazing recovery to his season. Yeah, it sucks to start off with that 49th, but I couldn't think of a better way to bounce back. And in 3rd place, you are going to have Sonix with his worst placement in over a year at this point. And it's 3rd place at a P tier. He picks up wins on Ned, Wild, and Riddles to get to that top 24. But then he gets upset by Shuton, but then he beats Snow, Shadic, Syrup, and Riddles before losing to Shuton once again. Takes it to Game 5 in that 2nd set as well. And I honestly don't have a ton to say here, aside from the fact that the curse has finally been broken. Not with a 1st place like I think many people would have expected it to, but with a 3rd place, so it's not like he was that far off. And also, this means pretty much nothing for Sonic season. He is absolutely still in contention for the best player in the world. He's just got another matchup that he needs to learn now, and all of our players, I would run and hide because it's not going to be safe for a couple weeks. And our grand finalists are going to be Shuton and SPARGO. Starting off with Shuton, he's going to pick up wins on Andrew T, Apple Reviewer, Quid, Zomba, and Sonix to get into top 8. He gets all those wins just to get into top 8, where then he beats Beast Mode Paul without being able to read the menu, by the way, or maybe he can read the menu, but in that case, he's bilingual, which is arguably more impressive than beating Beast Mode Paul, but still very impressive to beat Beast Mode Paul regardless. Then he loses to SPARGO in that game 5 in the winners finals, beats Sonic to prevent the streak, and then loses to SPARGO in that run back. But amazing run from Shuton. Second place at a P tier is definitely nothing to scoff at. And it's been quite some time since we've seen Shuton make a run like this at an NA event. I think the last time even top 8 in an NA major was at Smash Factor X. Now, definitely don't quote me on that one, but it hasn't happened in 2024. He's been struggling when he comes overseas to NA, but not this time around. The only Japanese representative in the top 8 to make it all the way to the grand finals is quite the impressive feat. I feel like Shuton is easily the best co-main in the world at this point. He's really the only one who's like fluently switching between his characters in the bracket. Both the Aegis and the Olimar are constantly getting value, and this tournament was, of course, no exception. Huge props to him for the run, but you gotta give bigger props to the man who did it with no sets dropped. That's right, SPARGO in first place. He's going to pick up wins on Sonito, Chase, Udace, and Asimo to get to that top 8 through the winner side. And prior to top 8, he does not drop a single game, by the way. Once in the top 8, he manages to beat Syrup and double eliminate Shuton from the bracket, only going game 5 in that winners finals. But SPARGO has just been looking unbelievable recently. He looks like the best player in the world. I will say, I'm very confident if SPARGO continues to play this way, he is going to be the best player in the world by the end of 2024. And he's got such an amazing start. Miya's got a couple bad placements. Akola has 7th place at Supernova, which is like technically a bad placement for these guys. Sonix gets his worst placement in over a year, even if it is a 3rd place. That's obviously still a big deal. SPARGO's just in such a good spot right now. 2 P tier wins under his belt. His worst placement of the season is 3rd place at a P tier, and form-wise, he is looking untouchable. With that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This sport has been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.